Anxiety has become a constant presence in modern life. It appears at unexpected moments, disrupts focus, sabotages well-being, and feeds on fear of the unknown. Some people try to combat it with quick and superficial solutions, but true transformation requires a deeper and more strategic look. Small changes can have surprisingly positive impacts. Many of these changes come from teachings that have spanned centuries, especially Stoic philosophy, which teaches us to find tranquility even in the midst of chaos. Ancient Stoics, such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, faced situations of extreme pressure, political and personal challenges unimaginable today. And yet they maintained an admirable serenity. This is because they knew that true peace is not achieved by trying to control what is beyond our reach, but rather by learning to control our own mind and emotions. This principle is powerful, but its practical application is even more valuable. Small, seemingly insignificant daily habits can transform the way we deal with anxiety. An effective approach is not to simply adopt relaxation techniques or try to forcefully calm the mind. Rather, it involves training the mind to react differently to stressful situations, seeing them from a new perspective. The good news is that this type of training does not require a radical change in your life, nor a long and complicated process. In fact, simple and accessible practices can be enough to significantly reduce anxiety in a matter of days. The secret lies in consistency and practical application of these teachings. And that is exactly what we will explore now. 6 lesser-known, but incredibly effective habits to reduce anxiety in a practical and fast way. Each of them is directly inspired by Stoic philosophy and adapted to the challenges of the modern world. Understanding how to apply these ideas in your daily life can make all the difference. Anxiety does not have to be an inevitable constant. It is possible to create a healthier relationship with your own thoughts and emotions. These habits do not promise a magical or immediate cure, but, when practiced regularly, they can create real and significant change. Transformation that not only reduces anxiety, but also strengthens emotional resilience and brings more clarity and balance to face everyday challenges. Let's dive into these practical principles, starting with a common mistake that many people make without realizing it. Anxiety often triggers the desire to avoid uncomfortable situations. It could be an important meeting, a difficult conversation, or even leaving the house to meet unfamiliar people. This tendency to run away from what causes anxiety is completely natural, but paradoxically, it is one of the biggest mistakes someone can make. The problem is that avoiding discomfort reinforces the idea that these situations are genuine threats that must be avoided at all costs. This behavior creates a dangerous cycle. The more you avoid what causes anxiety, the more your mind associates these situations with something scary and uncontrollable. Over time, the fear grows and becomes even more paralyzing. The Stoics knew this mental mechanism well. For them, true inner strength comes not from escape or temporary relief, but from the willingness to face what is uncomfortable with courage and acceptance. Epictetus said that it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. By deliberately avoiding discomfort, we allow these distorted interpretations to control our lives. A key Stoic practice to combat this error is gradual exposure to discomfort. This simply means choosing to face small, uncomfortable situations on a regular basis. You don't have to start with huge, daunting challenges. The key is to build resilience gradually. Something as simple as taking a cold shower in the morning, putting your phone away while you wait for an important message, or starting a difficult conversation you've been putting off for a while. Each of these actions is an opportunity to train your mind to react in a calmer, more controlled way to challenging situations. The goal is not to eliminate anxiety completely, but to teach your mind that it can handle discomfort and act rationally, even when fear is present. This gradual training not only reduces anxiety over time, but also builds self-confidence and increases your ability to face increasingly complex situations with equanimity. The key is consistency. Small exposures to discomfort, practiced daily, help the mind become less reactive and more resilient. Rather than hiding from what triggers anxiety, adopting an active coping stance is one of the most powerful steps to reducing its impact. With this practice in mind, the next step is to understand how seemingly simple techniques can produce profound results. And one such technique is conscious breathing, used by the Stoics themselves to maintain calm in critical moments. Breathing is one of the most powerful and underrated tools for dealing with anxiety. Often overlooked for its apparent simplicity, the way we breathe directly influences our mental and emotional state. For the Stoics, controlling our breathing was an essential practice for maintaining calm and clarity, even in the most stressful situations. Marcus Aurelius, in his writings, often mentioned the importance of regulating one's emotional state through breathing and reason. The idea is that by controlling the rhythm of breathing, the mind becomes more serene and able to respond rationally rather than react impulsively. An extremely effective technique that can be applied at any time of the day is square breathing. Although it has been popularized today by various meditation and relaxation disciplines, the basic concept is rooted in the Stoic approach to maintaining control over one's emotional state. Square breathing consists of 4 simple steps. Inhale slowly through the nose for a count of 4. Hold the breath for a count of 4. Exhale gently through the mouth for a count of 4. Remain with your lungs empty for a count of 4. This cycle can be repeated for a few minutes until you notice a sense of calm taking over your body and mind. This method is not only a relaxation technique, but also a practical exercise for regaining control over your thoughts and emotions. When anxiety strikes, it is common for your breath to become shallow and shallow, further fueling the feeling of uneasiness. By practicing square breathing, your body is forced into a slower, more controlled rhythm, which sends a clear signal to your nervous system that there is no real threat present. In addition, this practice promotes focus on the present. By counting and controlling your breathing, your mind is diverted from the worries that fuel anxiety and gradually returns to a state of balance. Incorporating square breathing into your daily routine is simple. You can do it when you wake up, before an important meeting, or whenever you notice the first signs of anxiety. Regular practice of this technique strengthens your ability to stay calm even in the midst of stressful situations, just as the Stoics did when facing intense challenges. Controlled breathing is a practical and accessible tool that requires nothing more than a few minutes and a willingness to apply it. But it is only part of the puzzle. Another key piece is how you react to your own anxiety. Accepting it rather than fighting it directly is a powerful approach that many people overlook. There is a curious paradox when it comes to anxiety. The more you try to eliminate it, the stronger it becomes. This attempt at excessive control is a common trap that only fuels the problem, making it even more difficult to deal with. The human mind is naturally drawn to what it tries to avoid. When someone tries hard to avoid feeling anxious, they end up focusing on it even more. This constant effort creates a cycle of resistance, which creates more tension and, consequently, more anxiety. The Stoics understood that trying to suppress emotions is an ineffective path. For them, acceptance was the key to dealing with any type of emotional suffering. Epictetus, for example, said that what disturbs us is not the events themselves, but the beliefs we have about them. Applying this logic to anxiety, the problem is not feeling anxious, but how we react to that feeling. Accepting anxiety does not mean giving up or conforming to it. On the contrary, it is an act of recognition and understanding. By accepting that anxiety is a natural reaction of the body and mind, it loses much of its power. True transformation occurs when we allow anxiety to exist without judging it or directly combating it. A useful practice for applying this philosophy is the exercise of mindful observation. Instead of trying to block anxious thoughts, imagine that they are like clouds passing through the sky. You observe them, acknowledge their presence, but do not cling to them. Allowing these thoughts to exist without trying to control them is a powerful way to reduce their intensity. Another way to apply this principle is through the concept of cognitive distancing. When anxiety strikes, instead of thinking, "I am anxious," try reframing it to, I am noticing anxious thoughts. This small shift in language creates a healthy separation between who you are and the thoughts you are experiencing. Mindful acceptance and cognitive distancing, when practiced regularly, can completely transform the way you deal with anxiety. It is a method that promotes serenity through non-resistance, a central concept in Stoic philosophy. Implementing this approach into your daily routine helps eliminate the internal conflict that creates unnecessary suffering. The more you accept anxiety as part of the human experience, the less power it has over you. This mindset creates a solid foundation for other practices, such as mindful breathing and gradual exposure to discomfort, to be even more effective. However, true transformation happens when you adopt a fundamental shift in mindset, focusing on the process rather than the results. Much of modern anxiety stems from an obsession with results. The constant pressure for success, recognition, and flawless performance puts the mind in a state of continuous vigilance, always worried about the future and fearful of failure. This results-oriented mindset is one of the main triggers of anxiety. The Stoics, on the other hand, understood that true power lies in focusing on the process rather than the end result. Epictetus taught that we should act in the best possible way in any situation, and let the results be a natural consequence of that effort. We have control over our actions, not the results. When someone focuses only on the result, they lose the ability to appreciate progress and become attached to rigid expectations that are unlikely to be fully met. This attitude creates frustration, fear, and, inevitably, anxiety. A practical way to apply this teaching is to set effort goals instead of result goals. For example, instead of worrying about the final grade on a test, the focus should be on studying consistently every day, dedicating a specific amount of time to learning, or instead of worrying about what others will think of a presentation, focus on the clarity of your message and your dedication to preparation. This mindset shift relieves pressure and reduces anxiety, as it allows your attention to be focused on what you can actually control, your own effort. It also promotes a sense of genuine accomplishment whenever you follow the process with dedication, regardless of the outcome. Another important aspect is learning to celebrate small victories. When you focus on the effort and not just the end result, each step you take becomes a meaningful achievement. This practice is a powerful antidote to anxiety, as it transforms gradual progress into something positive and rewarding. Practicing this mindset shift requires consistency and conscious intention. In challenging situations, it is helpful to ask yourself questions such as, what is within my control right now? And, am I doing the best I can within my means? This immediate reflection helps bring your mind back to the present, where anxiety loses its power. Embracing this Stoic principle means learning to act with excellence and detaching yourself from the results. It's about understanding that the true value lies in the journey, not the destination. And by applying this philosophy in practice, anxiety becomes an increasingly rare visitor. Accepting anxiety and focusing on the process are powerful allies. But there is an even more profound method for dealing with fear and insecurity: the practice of negative visualization. It may seem counterintuitive, but one of the most powerful techniques for reducing anxiety is to imagine worst-case scenarios. Known as premeditatio malorum or negative visualization, this Stoic practice involves preparing the mind to face difficulties before they even happen. While many modern approaches suggest thinking positively at all times, the Stoics believed that ignoring the possibility of failure or pain only makes the mind more vulnerable when difficulties inevitably arise. By contemplating possible challenges and losses, one is not seeking to invite the worst, but rather to prepare oneself emotionally to deal with it should it occur. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the impermanence of things by imagining losses and challenges before they arose. This exercise was not an act of pessimism, but rather a training to strengthen resilience and mental clarity. When one mentally prepares oneself for difficult situations, two important things happen. First, irrational fear loses its power. By deliberately and rationally imagining a bad scenario, the mind becomes able to face it in a more objective way, without the emotional overreaction that anxiety often generates. The situation is seen as something manageable, rather than as an overwhelming threat. Second, practicing negative visualization increases gratitude. By imagining the possibility of losing something important, the value of that something becomes more evident. This renewed appreciation creates a sense of presence and acceptance, reducing the anxiety that arises from constant dissatisfaction. How can you apply this concept in practice? Set aside a few minutes each day to reflect on the challenges that cause you the most anxiety. Ask yourself, what is the worst-case scenario? And what would I do if this really happened? As you answer these questions, look for practical solutions and think about how you would react emotionally to each situation. The key is not only to imagine the worst, but also to realize that, even if it happens, you are capable of coping. This exercise provides clarity and confidence, as it prepares the mind to face difficulties in a rational and balanced way. This practice also teaches us that life is full of uncertainties and that it is impossible to have complete control over everything. By accepting this reality, anxiety loses much of its power. The more you mentally prepare yourself to face challenges, the less they have the power to surprise and destabilize you. Negative visualization is a practical technique, but its effectiveness increases considerably when combined with another essential Stoic concept, the power of presence in the present moment. And that is exactly what we are going to explore now. Anxiety is essentially a constant worry about the future. It is the fear of what might happen, of the negative possibilities that the mind projects. However, as the Stoics well knew, the future is something beyond our control, and focusing on it only generates anguish. True peace is found in the present moment, in the here and now. Epictetus taught that we should act in the best way possible in the present circumstances, leaving aside worries about what we cannot control. For him, the present is the only moment that truly belongs to us. Everything else is just speculation. The practice of focusing on the present is more than a philosophical concept. It is a practical skill that can be developed to dramatically reduce anxiety. Instead of wasting mental energy trying to predict or control the future, you can train your mind to stay where it really matters, in the present. One effective technique for this is intentional mindfulness. When you notice your mind wandering to imaginary scenarios and anxiety-provoking situations, you can deliberately redirect it to what is happening right now. Whether it's the sensation of your breath moving in and out of your body, the sounds around you, or the texture of an object in your hands, any sensory input can be used as an anchor to bring your mind back to the present. In addition, it is helpful to ask yourself whenever anxious thoughts arise, what is really happening right now, and what is in my control right now? These simple questions can help break the cycle of anxious thoughts and restore focus to what is relevant and tangible. Another Stoic practice that connects with the power of the present is the concept of amor fati, which means loving fate. This idea suggests that instead of resisting what happens, we should embrace reality as it is. This does not mean passive resignation, but rather accepting circumstances with serenity and acting in the best way possible within them. Practicing amor fati is a way of training the mind to accept the present without resistance. When we stop fighting against what we cannot change, anxiety loses its main fuel. The mental energy that was previously wasted on worry becomes available for concrete and productive actions. The power of being present is one of the most valuable resources for combating anxiety. By applying it consistently, it is possible to create a more stable and resilient state of mind, capable of facing challenges without being dominated by them. Anxiety is a natural part of the human experience, but the way we react to it determines whether it will dominate our lives or whether we will learn to control it. As we've seen, the Stoics have a unique but profoundly effective approach to dealing with anxiety. By integrating practices such as exposure to discomfort, breath control, acceptance of emotions, and focusing on the present, we can significantly reduce the effects that anxiety has on our lives. However, the real key is not to apply these techniques once or in moments of great pressure. The key is consistent and intentional practice. Like any skill, controlling anxiety requires repetition and patience. Small daily actions, such as focusing on effort rather than outcome, practicing mindful breathing, or briefly visualizing negative thoughts, have the power to transform our relationship with anxiety over time. The Stoics' teachings remind us that what we can truly control is our response to events, not the events themselves. By cultivating a mindset of acceptance and presence, we can shift the way anxiety manifests itself, moving from a state of fear and resistance to one of peace and clarity. But perhaps the greatest insight the Stoics offer us is the importance of living according to our values and acting with excellence, regardless of the outcome. This not only reduces anxiety, but also increases the sense of purpose and fulfillment in our lives. When we focus on the process rather than the outcome, the weight of expectation dissolves, and we are able to live more lightly and truthfully. The daily practice of these philosophies, even in their simplest forms, can be the difference between a life governed by fear and one guided by serenity. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." By adopting Stoic wisdom and integrating it into your daily life, you will not only reduce anxiety, but also increase your resilience, inner peace, and your ability to live more authentically. The path to serenity is before us, and as the Stoics teach us, it only takes one small step.